podcast. Today we are doing chapters 23 and 24. I do feel like I should script an intro, but you don't really need to know anything. So we're just gonna hop right into chapter 23. I caught Dave yawning out of the corner of my eye and paused, glancing at the window. Somehow I wasn't too surprised to find it was night. It felt like today had lasted forever, considering Opeland's surprise visit, and then Jackson's even more surprising, if less damaging, visit. I found myself yawning too. Seems like maybe it's time for sleep, Stella said wryly. I think you're right. I still tired easily, probably a side effect of my shoulders healing. Jay roused himself, half asleep in his corner. It's past time. Go back to sleep, James. His nose wrinkled, but he didn't protest otherwise. Already halfway there. Dave needed no second urging, curling up next to Stella and appearing to instantly fall asleep. Jay shifted and leaned against me. Damn, but I'm sore. It'll be worse in the morning, I told him. Oh, I thank you, Jasmine, for being a ray of sunshine. I smirked. It's night out, Jay. I hate you. I know. I thought he might have been developing a reply, but I fell asleep before he managed it. Wake up, Jasmine. I blinked groggily, looking up in the direction of the voice. Oh, morning, Rees. I yawned, rubbing my eyes. After 2 weeks, my brain was definitely dulling. What do you want? Doctor's here and wants to see you, so get up. You couldn't have waited a couple hours until sane people were awake? I asked grumpily, nudging Jay in the side. He comes here before he goes to his own practice, Rees informed me. How kind of him, I said, as Jay sat up, yawning too. Up, he told me. I dragged myself up, imagining that as crappy as I felt, Jay had to feel 10 times worse. How are you feeling, Jay? Shitty, he replied, sitting up with an involuntary grimace. But I'm sure you know that already, considering you witnessed yesterday. Rees smiled thinly as he opened the door. I thought you might be more excited, Jez, he told me. About what? The doctor thinks you'll be able to start fully using your arms again. And this should excite me. Why? Because you can move again. And you can start kicking my ass again. He gave me a quick, sharp look. We'll chat later, James. I can't wait, my friend said dryly, standing carefully as Rees locked the door behind me. Rees fell into step beside me. I did my best to ignore him, but he studied my profile. General Opeland will be back. I decided that didn't need a response. So, what did you learn yesterday morning? The question caught me so off guard that I stopped dead. What? What are you talking about? You heard the question. Yes, but that doesn't mean it's processing. You're definitely crazier than I thought. Think about it rationally. Leave emotions out of it. I turned on him. Did you happen to observe yesterday morning? I said flatly. It's a little hard to think about it rationally. Really? Thinking about it makes me want to just castrate your boss. You're a smart girl, Jess. Think about it. He started walking again, and I automatically did as well. I learned that you're still condescending. Smart girl. I rolled my eyes. Wording aside, he said impatiently. I learned that there's more going on behind the scenes than I previously thought. He frowned. That wasn't quite what I was looking for. Really? Am I making deductions you don't appreciate? My bad. I examined him for a minute. What's your deal anyway, Rees? My deal? He asked, almost carefully. Yeah, you seem to have no qualms about beating Jay and I up while you take pride in your so-called brilliant deductions. But then, as soon as your boss showed up and started trying to do it his way, you balked. He glanced at me as we turned the corner. Don't be stupid, Jasmine. Stupid? Really? Are we resorting to childish names now? As I said, I'm just making some deductions of my own, and I have the right to ignore them, as you do for me. I gave him a wide smile. Glad to see you understand. His face twisted, but he stopped at a door and motioned me in. We're here. I stepped inside. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Colonel, ma'am. It's good to see you up and about. I smiled back. Feels good to be up. Thank you. I have work to do. Kilgore is outside and will escort Jasmine to her cell when you're done, Rees said with a polite nod to the doctor and a significant look at me before he stepped outside and pulled the door shut. Please, have a seat, the doc said, gesturing. How are your arms feeling? Still achy, but better. Motion? He jotted down notes on paper like I was a real patient. I tried hard not to chuckle or roll my eyes. I can move it in the full range, but it hurts. I've tried to limit it as much as possible. He set the paper down and stood, indicating my shoulders. May I? Let me know when and if it hurts. Go for it, I told him, and he stepped over, carefully prodding my shoulders before rotating them. They felt sore, but no explosions of pain. Seems better. You're not screaming, he said lightly. I had to like him, at least a little. He had nothing to do with me being there, and he had a sense of humor. Yeah, it's a definite plus. He checked the cast on my left arm. Good, it hasn't cracked. You seem to be a quick healer. It's a trait that's come in handy a couple of times, I agreed. The doctor nodded. You're looking a lot healthier than you did a week ago. It had already been a week? Being immune to the good colonel does help with that. He smiled faintly. I've seen my fair share of the colonel's prisoners, and your recovery time is still impressive. You were headed towards death last time I saw you. I've sported the half-death dead look more than once, I said dryly. What exactly broke? I asked, tapping the cast. Your humerus. Bone between the elbow and the shoulder. It was a nasty break. How long until it heals? 4 to 6 weeks, I'd say. 6 weeks is closer to normal, but you do seem to be a quick healer, so I'd go on the shorter side. I'll be by a couple times to check on you in the meantime. And how long until you give the Rees the all clear? A week max, I'm sorry, he said quietly. Don't worry about it. I shook my head. A week is plenty. The man pursed his lips but stood. I should get going. Thank you, sir. I'll see you at some point then, I said, and stood as well, offering my hand. It's good to shake with you, he said wryly. Good luck. Thanks. We're trying hard to keep our sense of humor. He smiled faintly, picking up his bag. I'll see you in a week or so. I nodded, and he exited, briefly greeting Kilgore on the way out. I took a deep breath and moved to the door. Kilgore grabbed my shoulder and gave me a shove back towards the cell. I shot him a glare, but he just smirked and did it again. I ground my teeth, but said nothing, speeding up so I was just out of easy reach until we got back to the cell. Dayton stood there to let me in, since they didn't seem to trust their own goons with keys. The short man also smirked at me, and I stuck out a foot, tripping him as he stepped forward to shut the door behind me. Jay snickered as Dayton shot me a nasty look. Watch yourself, Jasmine. I snorted. Shut up, Shorty. It's clear that you've got no power. Probably only a little more than we do. He quivered with rage before slamming the door extra hard, locking it, and stalking off. My cellmates laughed. Well played, Jay said, holding up his hand for a high five. You seem in fine form this morning. My shoulders have gotten the okay. They didn't really hurt at all when I moved them. It'll be another few weeks for my arm. And how long for Rees? Jay asked soberly. Another week or so. Dave smiled widely at me. That's great. Now let's get back to the story. Jay laughed as I raised an eyebrow at the boy. He's been waiting very patiently for your return, he said, as he offered me my portion of breakfast. He wants to know what happens next, but I told him I wouldn't continue until I got back. Go ahead while I eat, then, I told him, settling back into my corner. Jay, wake up. Don't want to, he muttered. Even if Jessie's dancing naked in the hall. Jay bolted upright, suddenly much more awake, but maybe not for the reasons Duncan would assume. I am not, Jessie yelled. Duncan grinned. Okay, so maybe she's not naked. I'm not dancing either, you jerk. Jay offered his hand for a high five, even as he yawned. Wow, you got her to pout. Can you teach me? It's a first, the other man said. Get dressed and then come meet us in Beau's room. He paused, a sly twinkle in his eye. Jessie, why don't you come keep Jay company while he changes? Someone once mentioned Jay, sleeping, and nude all in the same sentence. As such, I'll pass. Duncan's grin widened. Why is Jessie standing outside her room anyway? Why don't you ask her? Jay eyed him. Jessie? He tried. I hate you. He paused, attempting to figure out what he'd done recently that might warrant that. Nothing sprang to mind. As such, he said solemnly, I shall have to drown in a pool of my own sorrow. Oh, shut up. I don't hate you. He glanced outside at Duncan, who was silently cracking up. I'm confused. I'm outside your room, she bit out, because there was enough debate over whether or not you would murder Dunk for waking you so early that I was worried for our friend's well-being. If I'd known what he was planning, I would have gotten to him first. Fair enough, Jay said, tugging on a clean shirt. It's good to know you are kind and caring and put others before yourself. I take it back. I do hate you. He smirked as he pushed back the curtain and emerged, Duncan a step behind him. So why are you getting me up at an ungod's-like hour of the morning? Today is Rye's 17th birthday, Jessie said. It's not ungod's-like. Is too, he said around another yawn, then offered a bright smile to Jessie. So, now that you're stalking my room while I sleep, does that mean you're ready to profess your love? She stopped so quickly he almost bumped into her. Duncan, she said in a scarily even voice, continue on to Beau's room. Jay and I will catch up. Dunk clamped down on the obvious snicker. Right, he said, winking at Jay and trotting off. Jessie turned on him, shoving a finger into his chest. James Doll, she growled. I believe we had discussed cutting back on the over-the-top flirting. He cringed at his name. We have, and I'm not stalking you. I know, she glared. That was the only comment I made. The rest was all Duncan, he said solemnly. She crossed her arms and stared him down. What? He whined. Honest, Jessie, I've been really good recently. A smile escaped before she brought it back under control. And what exactly is your definition of good? He thought about it. Well, you haven't threatened to murder me in days, which is a vast improvement, he said cheerfully. She broke down and laughed. You are such a pain in the ass. But you love me anyway. She smacked him in the shoulder, but took the finger out of his ribs and headed down the hall. He jogged a few steps to catch up. How do you know I'm not being serious? What do you mean? How do you know I'm not serious about the flirting? She fell silent as they walked, but then finally shrugged. I didn't at first. I'm not sure you weren't, but there came a point where I could tell it was all in fun. I don't really mind. Mind? That you don't mean it. If I thought you minded, I wouldn't do it, he told her seriously. If I'd been serious about the flirting, I would not be nearly so obnoxious. Find that hard to believe, she said lightly. It's not that I don't like you, he added. You're a great friend, and it's really nice having someone who knows. He grinned. I think it's clear that I need a stern James doll to keep me grounded every so often. That I can do. Plus, you're the first person who's never smacked me for the flirting repeatedly. You're a good sport, Jessica Ryder. You have no idea, James doll. He slung his arm around her shoulder. And hey, you never know. If we just let fate take its course. She snorted. Let fate take its course. Is that what you call it? He grinned as they reached Beau's room. What took you so long? Dunk asked with a wicked grin. I think I liked you better when you didn't hang out with us, Jessie told him, shooting him a look. He laughed. So what's the plan for Riley's birthday? Mick asked, glancing around. Any ideas? Well, we've done the most of the basic ones. Jess ticked them off in her fingers. A surprise party, playing in the snow, pretending we've forgotten. Bri even did that one-man play for Jessie's. Jessie shot a glance at Jay as the others grinned in memory. He shrugged slightly, and she nodded. Are the lovebirds sending signals across the room? Dunk asked, leaning back in his chair smugly. Unfortunately for him, he was within reach of Jay, who made a face and kicked the back leg of the chair, tipping it dangerously off balance. Duncan yelped as he hastily grabbed the desk to keep from tipping over. The others laughed. He finally regained his balance and shot Jay a look. Jay grinned smugly. That's what you get. That reminds me, Beau interrupted before they could get into it. Iris is working on a play, and she wants all of you to perform in it. Iris is doing it? Jessie asked, making a face. Why can't we write it again? Apparently yours was too risque for our younger residents. Does that mean no outfit? Jez asked, giving him a winning smile. Jay perked up. What outfit? Beau glowered at both of them. I will never wear that outfit ever again. A burst of laughter from the doorway caused them all to turn. Rye stood there, hands clapped over her mouth in an attempt to stifle her laughter. Rye! Jessie exclaimed. Hey, what's up? The younger girl rolled her eyes. As if I didn't notice you both get up and leave. You were like a herd of horses. She then turned to her captain. Bet you'd put it on if Jez asked you. Beau blushed a fierce red. I would not. You sure? Jez asked mildly. In his horrified look, she relented. I wouldn't make you wear it. She then grinned mischievously. But I might ask nicely. You are all horrible, he told them. I will not. So, what are you planning for my birthday? Rye asked, bounding into the room. Nothing, Jessie said. Make you attend your lessons. Iris is expecting you, Mick said solemnly at the same time. Rye made a face. Not funny. Super secret mission to defeat the three single-handedly. You tried that on Jay already, Beau, she said dryly. Then what do you want to do for the big day? Jez asked. Doesn't have to be anything special, she said with a shrug. We're all here and safe. That's enough for me. That reminds me, Jez said and produced some paper. Reminiscent of my first birthday here. Rye accepted it nervously, but almost instantly grinned as she took it in, giving Jez a hug. Thank you. I can be considerate sometimes. A lot of the time, Rye corrected as Jay plucked the paper from her hands and examined it before squinting. Do I have horns and fangs? Jez's eyebrows snapped together and she frowned. What? Jay handed it to her wordlessly. Well, I'll be damned, she said after a minute. No pun intended. Jessica, you wouldn't have any idea how this happened, would you? Jessie did her utmost best to look innocent. Ouch, Mick murmured, clearly amused. Their friend finally shrugged. I thought it needed a bit of touching up. Rye burst into laughter at the incredulous look Jay leveled at Jessie. From now on, though, we can leave it to fate, she finished quickly. Oh, no, now we're at war, he said with a wide, almost predatory grin. This should be interesting, Beau murmured to Jez and Mick. The rest of the day passed quietly enough. Rye hung the picture in her room. It showed the whole group, including Bri, standing together smiling, and, in Jay's case, looking devilish for real. They gave her their other small presents after lunch, and then went for a walk, Jay especially quiet. So, not going to get Jessie back today? Rye finally asked out of curiosity. He grinned. Nah, too soon. Remember how Beau waited forever to get you back? I find revenge served just a little cold is the best kind. Properly devious of you. I'm good at devious when I want. Plus, I want this to be perfect. It really wasn't that bad, was it? No, of course not. I'm actually impressed. I didn't realize she had it in her. The new 17-year-old laughed. Jessie manages a good one every once in a while. I heard that, Jessie said, giving them a look as she approached with Jez and Beau. What are you two talking about? Cake! It's cake time! And singing time! Rye grimaced. Do you have to sing? All four of them grinned at her. She sighed. As long as Jay doesn't. Hey, now! I sing wonderfully, he protested. The others exchanged glances. Jessie will let you sing at her birthday, Jez told him. Really? No! Meanie head, he muttered, glowering at her. She made a face back. Ren couldn't quite manage to wrap his head around the fact that he was about to be officially alive again after almost 2 years. Mostly because it had never quite sunk in that he wasn't alive in the first place. He paced his room as best he could on his crutches. Other than Annie's typical in and out, his only other visitor had been Soren, who'd let himself in without even his usual cursory knock. "Ren?" He looked up, startled. "Yes?" he asked cautiously. "Did you ever meet Annie and Vladimir's father?" Ren didn't miss the name choice. Edward, right? He started the family business before Vladimir took it over." "Yes." "I believe so, when I was still fairly young. Father introduced me and then warned me to keep my distance, that he was dangerous. I avoided him. Then, one day, Vladimir and Annie came, and eventually you. But my father never warned me away from all of you the same way he did Edward." Soren sat in thoughtful silence for a couple heartbeats. Dangerous fits. He could be very dangerous indeed. Many mourned his passing for just that reason. He looked up, meeting Ren's eyes, quiet intensity burning in them. "Remember that," he said with a brief nod. Then he turned and vanished out the door. Ren couldn't quite figure out the purpose of that short conversation, even pondering it for almost a day before Annie bounded into his room. "Rennie, darling muffin," she sang. "Yes?" "Are you ready to face the great big world?" "You mean a rather small percentage of Oakbread's population," he said dryly. "Well, yes, obviously, but it's now. You know that, right?" He blinked, startled. "What?" "They've already gathered, knowing that there'll be an announcement, just no one knows what for." "Kind of your brothers to give me a heads up," he grumbled. "When Vlad says soon, he means soon," she said cheerfully and passed him his crutches. "Let's go, Muffin." "Annie," he sighed, pushing himself up and getting the crutches settled. "No, I will never stop calling you that," she informed him, falling into step and motioning him out his door for only the second time before following him out. They found Soren and Vlad waiting in a small anteroom off the balcony where his father had always made his announcements. Ren's stomach clenched. Vladimir ignored him, but Soren looked up from their conversation to nod. As it broke up, Soren stepped over and clasped his shoulder. "Do what you need to do," he murmured so quietly that Ren wasn't sure he heard him correctly. Then he was past, pulling Annie aside to speak quietly to her. Vlad was suddenly standing in front of him. "Remember, you're not here to talk. Smile and wave. Look healthy." Ren barely resisted the urge to snap off a quick retort. Annie had passed those directions on to him already. "I understand." "Good." With that, Vladimir turned and stepped out into the balcony. Ren heard the slow hushing of the crowd gather outside as he moved to the door where one of their lackeys stopped him. "Vladimir wants to say a few words first," Soren said, suddenly at his shoulder again, but with the lackey right there, Ren didn't dare ask about his earlier comment or the conversation about Edward. Using a speaking horn, Vlad could project his voice far enough that the crowd could hear. His speech was uninspired at best, and Ren couldn't help but think Soren would do better, or Annie. "Today, we have a surprise for you," he said, as if it wasn't obvious. "I realize it will be a shock, but please, try not to faint." That got a weak chuckle from the crowd. "I apologize for keeping this secret for so long, but we had to be sure that we could protect him from those that wish him harm." "Like you," Ren muttered. Soren shot him a look, but said nothing. The crowd murmured, all eyes riveted on Vladimir. "Sir," Vlad said, all respectful. Ren wanted to gag. "Could you come here, please?" For an instant, he debated ignoring him. Soren didn't move either, standing almost in solidarity beside him. "Sir," Vlad repeated a bit more strongly, shooting him a stern look, something lurking just below his almost jovial exterior. Ren hiked forward on his crutches until he could see the crowd. For a moment, there was complete silence. "Look!" someone yelled. "It's Prince Rainier!" A wild cheer went up, followed by a dozen hats. Ren felt himself smile, despite everything, and he lifted his hand in a wave which only made them roar louder. He could feel Vlad glaring at his back, but he ignored him. "Prince Rainier," Soren said after a minute. His name and title together startled him so much he glanced back. "Now would be a good time to announce your wedding." "What?" he managed, feeling abruptly like Ren the prisoner again, constantly on his heels trying to navigate this set of siblings. He didn't feel quite so surprised when he realized Annie and Vlad were both staring at their brother with shock too. "He's not supposed to speak," Vlad hissed, suddenly furious. "I highly doubt that Ren would do anything so foolish as to call himself a captive." "I could do an announcement," Ren said slowly. "I don't like it. It's an unnecessary risk." Ren could tell that crowd anything right now. Absolutely anything, and they'd approve. "They've got their high castle again, at your insistence," Soren said flatly. The brothers stared at each other, a silent test of wills that had Ren instantly on edge. Annie felt it too, scooting over to him and sneaking her hand into his. He glanced at her, but her gaze was fixed on her siblings, eyes wider than usual, so he squeezed her hand. The crowd began chanting his name, and Ren could tell from the volume that the news was spreading, the crowd swelling. "We need a decision," he said quietly, but it broke the spell. "Fine," Vlad growled, and thrust the speaking horn into Ren's hand. "Do it, then." Ren's gaze darted to Soren, who smiled faintly and nodded. He squeezed Annie's hand again and turned with her to face the crowd. "Citizens of Tira, people of Oakbridge," he yelled, voice carrying easily. The instant people below heard him, a hush crept through the crowd, every last one of them staring up at the pair. "I am proud and humbled by your response to my survival. I'm so glad to be here, and to say I've missed you would be an understatement. He felt Vlad's gaze. But what's done is done, and it had to be done, he said, figuring the lie wasn't too bad. Now it's time for all of us to move forward, and that's why I wish to make an announcement. A happy announcement. One that is reason for joy in all of Tira. A fresh smile blossomed. This he could do. He lifted their linked hands. Annie Oakland and I would like to announce our engagement and upcoming wedding. We'll let everyone know the dates as we choose them. He hesitated, out of words, not sure he needed more anyway. Annie tightened her hold on his hand. What's that? She whispered suddenly. His gaze darted back to the crowd. Long live the king and queen! The sound began to swell as more and more of the crowd took up the cry. Wren's eyes went wide as it suddenly clicked. He was king of Tira, not the prince. He hadn't really been the prince in 2 years. That hadn't hit him until now, and he felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. The smile vanished as quickly as it appeared, and the hand holding the speaking horn dropped too. Wren? Annie asked, concerned. He shook his head. I can't, he managed before turning away, pulling his hand from Annie's, head spinning uncomfortably as he started walking. He can't just, Vlad started, but Soren shook his head. Let him go. Calip, keep an eye on him, but don't disturb him unless he tries to get out. Yes, sir, Calip replied before hurrying up. Vladimir spun on Soren angrily. What do you think you're doing? He can't just walk off like that. Leave him alone, Vlad. Annie spoke up, her voice angry too. Just because you don't understand personal pain doesn't mean you can't be sympathetic to it, she snapped before turning and stomping away. Have fun with crowd control, Soren added, smirking a bit, although Vlad could tell it was more a reflex than anything, as the younger brother also turned and left. Chapter 24. Quiet, Dave said suddenly, interrupting me. What is it? Jay asked. Footsteps, he murmured, and scooted into Stella's side. I peeked out and was somewhat surprised to see Rees stalking down the corridor. Rees. So soon? I was really hoping to avoid seeing his ugly mug twice today. Plus, I still hurt pretty much everywhere. I shrugged, smiling when I didn't have to curb the motion. I don't know. Maybe that's part of his plan. Rees came to a stop outside the door, looking us all over. His gaze came to a stop on Jay. You remind me of someone, he said, after a minute or two of silent but intense study. Oh, that's all. And here I was thinking I had something in my teeth, Jay told him. Cute, he said absently, but continued to stare, tilting his head back and forth. What, do you want a strip show? I couldn't help it, and burst out laughing. Even Rees cracked a smile, the intensity dying. Truly cute for once, James. Jay sketched a bow while still sitting, smirking. Glad I can be of service. So, who do I remind you of? He asked easily. I'm sure you two have never met. He has a similar tendency to be random and ridiculous. That's it? That's not much to base something like that off of, Rees. I thought you were going to say he was my handsome spitting image. If that were true, he would have gotten all the good looks. Jay cocked an eyebrow. Ouch! Playing along for once, Colonel. Getting tired of it, he shot back. Didn't think you were that quick on your feet, I said, unable to resist. It's a learned skill, he said before taking another minute to study my friend. You and I will be visiting tomorrow, James. Jasmine, enjoy your vacation while it lasts. General Oakland is getting restless for results. Bully for him, Jay said. Now, if you don't mind, Jez and I were just practicing our tango. Your what? He repeated, startled. I managed to keep a straight face, nodding solemnly. Tango, you know, the dance. Are you planning on attending a ball soon? No, but you can never let your skills go rusty, he said. It's a damn crime if you do. Are you any good? I'm all right. Jez is better, though. Comes from being a noble and all that. I'm just a lowly peasant. He slapped a hand over his heart as if wounded. With a big mouth, Rees said dryly. As much as I'm sure you enjoy the attention, James, I need to go. I do have other commitments to maintain. You mean we're not your entire life? I said with a mournful sigh. What a shame. Your sarcasm is cutting, Jasmine. I smirked. I know, Trigger. He once again could not stop the slight wince at his first name. I will see you tomorrow, he said flatly, spinning on his heel and disappearing. Jay and I exchanged a high five in triumph. What was that about a striptease, Jay? Stella asked. To my never-ending amusement, my friend went bright red, possibly the most vibrant shade I had ever seen on him. She smirked and messed up his hair. You're quite cute, Red, Jay. Thanks, he muttered, flattening his hair. Dave rolled his eyes and spoke up. Did Jessie really do that to Rye's present? Yeah, apparently something I'd said earlier in the week had gotten to her, and she added it while she was still annoyed. She admitted later she'd completely forgotten about it until I noticed, Jay said, slowly regaining his proper color. So, what was your revenge? He asked. We'll get to it, Jay said cheerfully. I'll pick it up. With a brief thought, he did just that. A few days later, the play came up again at dinner. So, how's Iris's production coming? Jessie asked Beau. Is it any good? I read her first draft last night. It's all right. It's trying to be serious, but sort of hovers near funny without making it. Why did she decide we needed another one? Jess asked. She told me she expected you three would get bored and start on one soon. She thought the last one was bad enough without adding Jay's lovely influence. My influence is lovely, he protested. I would have kept them in line. If you say so, Jay, Rye said with a snort. I suppose we can play along, as long as it isn't sappy. No, definitely not sappy. Jay looked thoughtful. Can we have editing rights? Jessie punched him in the shoulder, laughing, but Beau nodded. I think that's a reasonable request, actually, but no writing in the outfit. Jez pulled a face. Beau, she whined. Mick smirked. Come on, you three. Let's leave the lovebirds to their discussion. The pair sent him a dark look while the others laughed. His smirks merely widened as he shooed the three away. Just after they'd left, Beau turned to her. I'm not wearing it, he said firmly. She grinned, patting him on the cheek. I wasn't going to make you, don't worry. He breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, thank goodness. She laughed. You don't hate it that much. You have no idea how much I hate that thing, he said dryly. If I could figure out where you guys hid it, I'd burn it. Then you're never finding out, she told him. I'm still holding out hope that I can get you into at least once more before it's retired. I didn't get to fully appreciate it and you last time, she said with wide eyes. I'm not falling for that. Bry's innocent look has no power over me. She giggled. So you say. I'm not giving up hope either way. He sighed. Make Jay wear it. He wouldn't mind. That, she said, kissing him on the cheek, is exactly why we won't. Then I guess it won't ever be worn again. As much as I'd love to continue this conversation, I have hand-to-hand training with Reardon, Jess told him. Oh, let me know how that goes. He's been lobbying me for that for a while. It seems like a good idea to me, so I will. She stood, but he caught her hand, standing to and bringing up a hand to her cheek, kissing her firmly. There, he said. You can go. She grinned. Why, thank you, fearless leader, for that permission. It took some time for Jay to figure out an appropriate revenge for Jessie, and by then, to his satisfaction, she had relaxed, seeming to think because it wasn't instantaneous, it wasn't coming. He didn't form the perfect plan until he watched a couple of the others in the kitchen carving off ice shavings from the block they carted in to try and keep foods cool. It only worked as well as it did because the caves were naturally on the cooler side. It took a little doing, but he managed to sweet talk and barter his way into a small bucket of the shavings early one morning. He pushed aside the curtain to the room where Jessie, Rye, Jez, and another young woman shared. Oh, Jessica, he cried, noting Jez's absence with some amusement. Wakey, wakey. Jessie rolled onto her back and blinked blearily up at him. What are you doing in here? And why are you so cheerful? She muttered, still half asleep. It snowed last night, he said solemnly. She squinted. Jay, it's not even September. We're not that far north. Come back again in 3 months. With that, she rolled back on her side, closing her eyes. You're ruining it, he told her. Rye sat up now, looking curious. Ruining what? She asked patiently, rolling onto her back but only cracking open one eye. My revenge, he said calmly, dumping a bucket of ice shavings on her. It took his comment and the cold a moment to seep in, then she rocketed to her feet, wide awake. Rye burst out laughing, followed by their final roommate, Anne. Cold, 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 Jessie breathed as she danced around trying to brush it all off. After more of the slushy cold water was on the ground, she paused to punch him hard in the shoulder. Ow, Jessie, he whined. She glared at him. That revenge was way out of line. I don't see how, he whined, rubbing his shoulder. You're already pretty much dry, and your bedroll will be dry by tonight. You, on the other hand, permanently defaced an otherwise lovely picture. She finally let out a laugh, punching him again, but not nearly so hard. God's breath, Jay. I think of everything, don't I? Look at me making it snow in August. That's one way to look at it, she grumbled, scooping up her bedroll and shaking it out. The only way, he corrected. She sighed. You're a pain in my ass. Yes, but now we're all up, so we can go play. I hate you, Jessie muttered. Go see if Jess is up while we get dressed. Yes, ma'am, he said cheerfully, and bounded off, contented in the knowledge his revenge had been perfect. They spent the day enjoying the nice weather, even managing to drag Beau out for a while. As the afternoon lengthened, they headed back inside and gathered in Beau's office doing a bit of work when Mick appeared, dropping a pile of parchment on the captain's desk. What's this? Beau asked. Iris's final copy of the play. She made me promise I'd look it over after the edits. She seems to think I'll make sure it remains appropriate. I, on the other hand, am not sure I'd fit it to her standards. You probably would. Iris can be quite fierce, after all, Rice said, amused. I should know. How? It's not like you ever attend her classes, Jessie teased. I'm almost free. If by almost you mean over 11 months, then yes, absolutely. Rice stuck her tongue out at her best friend. Jay flipped through the copy, thoughtfully. Let me rework it. Bo eyed him. Then Nick will definitely have to edit it. If that's what you think, I'll make you a deal, Jay said, looking hurt. A deal? Yeah. I'll rewrite this on different paper with my edits. Then everyone else here, and Dunk, gets to read it. If they don't change anything of substance, and Dunk won't know about the deal, then you have to cook me dinner. Cook you dinner. Yes. And they can't change anything. Anything for inappropriate material. Grammar and stupid things don't count. Bo debated it and then offered his hand. It's a deal. Good. It'll be done by tomorrow afternoon. Only a day? I'm good like that, Jay informed them loftily, promptly scooping up the script and disappearing. You're going to end up making that man dinner, Jessie said thoughtfully. You think so? Mick asked. He wouldn't make the deal if he wasn't confident he could manage it, Jess agreed. Bo shrugged. I'm not sure why he'd want a dinner out of it. I'm a mediocre cook at best. Yes, but then he can say the boss cooked for him. Oh, so you still acknowledge that I'm the boss? When I must, Jess said easily, grinning. Jay reappeared the next day, looking pleased with himself. Done, he announced, passing the changes to Mick. Ready for the first read-through? Mick eyed them, shrugged, and then sat down at Bo's desk to read. Jay managed to be patient for all of 3 seconds before he began humming loudly. Oh, for the sake of the gods, Rye grumbled and pointed at Jay. You, come. What? Where? Apparently we need to occupy you while the process happens, Mr. I'm a small child. He shot her a sulky look. Let's go, Jess said, standing up and pulling Jessie to her feet as well. You too, Bo. Oh, really? You're ordering me around now? Yes, sir, she said with a smirk. Now move it. He rolled his eyes but joined them. I'll come find you when I'm done, Mick said with a vague wave. So what are we going to do? Jay asked. You tell us, Jessie said. You're the reason we need to find something. He thought about it for a minute. How about constables and robbers? The four stopped and stared. Constables and robbers? Bo asked curiously. Yeah, like we did as kids. That's it, Bo burst. That's perfect. Even Jay looked surprised at that assertion. It is? Mick and I have been talking about how we need to practice working as a unit against opponents more and give ourselves more experience in a more realistic melee combat. Why not start now? Jez, go find Reardon and tell him what's going on. See who he has today. The rest of you, track down anyone else who isn't involved in something critical. We'll gather in the main room. It didn't take long to get everyone in the room, settled at the tables and on the floor, waiting for Bo to speak. We're only months away from what I hope will be a successful bid to clear the three from the Tyran throne. That being said, we are woefully unprepared for any real combat and working together. He stepped aside so Reardon could take his place. So, mostly due to the need for peace in Bo's office and Jay's obvious inability to entertain himself, he paused for the chuckles to fade as Jay waved at everyone cheerfully. We're going to do some practice. The captain and I will split you into 2 groups, making you as evenly matched as we can. Everyone will get a wooden sword and or blunt arrows. Be careful, but don't be afraid to dole out bruises. We want this to feel as real as possible. He's right. The better we learn to work together, the more of us will make it to the end. If you have other duties throughout the day, you're allowed to leave and complete them. Just make sure your team captain knows so we can replace you with someone who's just come off duty. Once you're split, your team captain will let you know what is considered a fatal blow versus a major or minor injury. The war games went exceedingly well. By the end of the day, the whole group had read Jay's script. They also all, with the exception of Bo and Mick, were covered in bruises, although they had less than many of the other inhabitants of Cavern Hall. Dunk read it last, setting it down on their table at dinner. He grinned, didn't change a word. Rye, who was taking up half the girl's side with her feet hanging off the end of the bench, looked up. You didn't find anything either, did anyone? The other 3 involved shook their heads. Bo! Jay beamed widely. You owe me dinner. Fair is fair, Bo agreed, amused, scooping up the copy. We'll copy out pieces tomorrow, and we'll figure out when we want to put this thing on. They spent much of the next 2 weeks learning their parts and throwing together half-hearted rehearsals when they could carve out the time. Finally, the morning the play dawned, and Bo pulled the blanket off Jez. Good morning! She curled up. Bo, it was warm, she protested sleepily. The play's this afternoon. We have yet to have a good rehearsal. Up so we can. I don't like you. I know. Get up anyway. She opened one eye to give him a baleful glare, but forced herself to roll out of bed. The rehearsal went well, not without a hitch or two, but with Jay's entrance so perfectly timed, Jess was pretty sure it wouldn't matter if they screwed up the rest. After dinner, the tables in the main room were pushed aside and everyone gathered, using what seats they could find. Mick stepped forward once they were settled and held his hands up for silence, which came almost instantly. Once again, we have gathered to see a play put on by some of our fellow freedom fighters. This time, he said dryly, they've even given me a part. Funniest part, Jessie called from where she and Duncan were ensconced in the audience. You better hope not. The spectators all chuckled, but quieted quickly in anticipation. Anyway, we'd like to end today with a very, very serious play, he continued. A drama, Jay called from offstage. Mick snorted, as if we'd believe him. It was written by Iris and edited by Jay. Is that even possible? Jessie asked, which was entirely ad-libbed. Jez looked at Jay, who made a face through the curtains in the general direction of their friend. Not funny, Jessica. You can dress them up, but you can't take them out, Mick commented, smirking as many present laughed again. Now, let's introduce our first star, Bo, our illustrious captain and narrator for the night. Bo slipped out from behind the curtain to take center stage. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many of you here to watch our little production. I suppose this is as good a time to announce that we've been searching and found an appropriate place for a secondary base. We've gained so many new recruits that Cavern Hall is, as you all know, beginning to burst at the seams. We're hoping to move an initial group there before the end of the month to get it inhabitable. Everyone cheered. They were all sharing at least 4 to a room, some more than that, and the small group had been reduced to sleeping in some of the public areas for lack of space. Jez quietly stepped out from the curtain to stand near the back. A lot of people noticed, but Bo continued speaking, drawing their attention again. Thank you. Now, announcement is over, so on to the meat of our show. Tonight, Jez and I will be playing ourselves, but we're joined by 2 very special guests. First, Vladimir Oplin. Riley abounded on stage, wearing the most formal clothes they could rustle up. She scowled at everyone as Jessie and Duncan led the boos from the audience. Bo fought a grin. And Anika Oplin. Jay waited a handful of beats and then bounded on stage. He wore a knee-length dress with a very gaudy floral pattern that actually belonged to Iris's mother originally. He sported a long, blonde wig, they couldn't find a red one, so they'd made do, and a pair of heavy boots with no socks, leaving his legs exposed between the boots and the dress. Everyone roared with laughter, and it barely settled as Jay spoke, beaming out at them and offering a passable curtsy. Oh, Vladdy, why do they laugh so? I don't know, Anika. Why don't you tell them? Rye responded. But why? Why, Vladdy? Can't you tell me? I already said I can't, Anika. Why don't you ask them? She gestured towards their audience. But I want you to tell me. Riley shrugged and turned to them, deepening her scowl. Why are you laughing at my little sister? Because that dress is ugly. Iris hadn't been thrilled with that particular line, but she allowed it to remain for the sake of the art. Her words, not theirs. Jay adopted an overly prissy voice. I will have you know that this dress comes from the finest dressmakers in Oakbridge. Now it was Duncan's turn to heckle. They must not like you very much. I resemble that. Riley rolled her eyes. Come now, Anika, we have to plan our attack. Against who? Jay's innocent look came in handy here for once. Them freedom fighters, obviously. Look, there are 2 now. I will get them. She drew a wooden practice sword and charged at Bo and Jez. Jay promptly bumbled forward and tripped her. Rye, as they rehearsed, made a huge showy fall onto her face. Jez, we have them now, Bo cried. Never, scalawags! Rye, as Vladimir returned, scrambling to her feet. Jay promptly plucked the sword out of her grasp and swung it wildly in Bo and Jez's general direction, smacking Riley with the flat of the blade. Jez grabbed Bo's arm. You know what? I think they're doing a fine job of it themselves today. I quite agree, he said. Come on, we can finish off what's left later. The pair exited the stage, going behind the curtain. Rye and Jay fake wrestled for a minute before Rye held the sword up triumphantly, dragging Jay as Anika to the other end of the stage, whispering to him with furtive looks at the audience, tossing them the occasional thumbs up or big grin as if the plan was going well. The rest of the play proceeded similarly and without any big hiccups. Rye, as Vladimir, did all she could to try and attack Bo and Jez while being thwarted at every turn by Jay as Anika. Eventually, Vladimir called it quits and dragged his sister away, leaving the castle to the freedom fighters. The play ended with Bo cutting a ceremonial strip of red fabric to signify the threshold of the castle and their win. In all, it wasn't a masterpiece, but everyone had a good laugh, especially with Jay prancing around in a floral dress. Mick stood up, moving to center stage after the 6 actors had taken their bows. Consider this, and the cutting of that fabric, to be a symbol of our cause and our movement into the next real offensive against the 3. True, we'll be spreading out in the next month, but that just shows how much we're growing, and as you all know, we represent a fairly small percentage of our allies around the country. As we've proven through the recent games, we're strong enough to fight back, make a stand against them, and hold our own. We don't have details yet, Bo added, but things are starting to come together, both here and around here through our network of allies. The hope is, by this time next year, we will have defeated the 3, and good people will once again be in charge of Oakbridge. Everyone let out a resounding cheer that echoed through the chamber. A few hats went flying into the air, adding to the general enthusiasm for the mini-speeches. The cast took another round of bows, including Mick this time, and the crowd slowly began to disperse to either bed or late-night duties. Jay, bored already, although still graciously accepting compliments on the dress, searched out the other cast members and started to grin when he spotted Duncan. The other man was chatting animatedly with a young woman named Kilo. As soon as Kilo stepped away to someone else, Jay called over, "Hey, Dunk!" Duncan looked up and blushed red when he realized it was Jay calling him. "Yes?" he asked cautiously, approaching. Jay grinned at him. "Does someone have a crush on The other man sprang forward to stop him, but Mick got there first, clapping a firm hand over Jay's mouth. "Jay, do not do that." "But it's so much fun," Jay whined twice, since he forgot to pry Mick's hands off the first time. "No, it's not," Dunk protested, blush spreading towards his ear. "It's embarrassing." "But it's cute. You got all cheerful and flustered." "I hate you." "You know, I hear that a lot." "That doesn't mean you need to shout it across the room," Mick told him. "I wasn't really going to, but I wanted him to know it's so adorable." "Use an adjective like that again, and I will kick your ass," Duncan said flatly. Jay's grin widened. "Don't worry, Duncan. She'll notice eventually." Jez did, Bo said from where he stood on Mick's other side. "Just try not to force Ryan and me to resort to locking you in a room," Jesse said lightly. "I'll do my best," Duncan said, but still stomped on Jay's foot for good measure. Ren's eyes registered nothing as he walked headlong through the halls. He finally stopped, staring at the door in front of him. He hadn't consciously chosen the direction, but it didn't surprise him to find himself there. After a deep breath, he pushed open the door and stared around the familiar room. It felt empty without his father or any of his things. It was plain the room had not been used, though, from the layer of dust on everything. Maybe his captors did have a sense of respect. Or Soren probably did. He stepped in, not bothering to shut the door. He doubted he'd be left in peace for long. Running his hand along the foot of the bed, he swiped angrily at his eyes. He would not cry. He had not cried since he woken up in the castle prison and known that his father must be dead, with the city under the control of the Opalin and Dagmar siblings. Now, he was an adult and one of the worst kings that Tira had ever seen. He sunk into the chair by the window, the chair where he'd sat on his father's lap so many times as a child, listening to stories from his childhood and from Tira, stories about his heritage. Ren set the clutches on the floor and drew his knees up to his chest, staring out the window over the farms surrounding the capital. The farms in his country. That was an intimidating thought. His father had only been in his mid-40s when he was killed, which meant, in a perfect world, Ren wouldn't even be thinking about taking the throne. And here he was, technically 2 years into his reign. He should have had 8 years or more before he had to worry about it. The tears came, no matter how hard he tried to stop them, as his father's death hit him all over again. He wasn't ready for this burden, to try to be more than he was. He was a pushover, a weakling who didn't even try and fight back. He rubbed his eyes and let his thoughts drift. Sometime later, the sun descended and he became aware of a presence in the room. He looked up, too drained to be surprised that Annie was in the doorway. "Hi," he said finally. "Hey." "How long have you been standing there?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Does it matter?" "No, I guess it doesn't." He studied her, though, fairly certain she'd been there since he'd first left. "Bit of a shock, huh?" she said with a small smile. "Just a little," he said, hugging his knees closer. "Can I come in?" Annie asked cautiously. "Why ask me?" he asked, knowing his face clearly expressed his cynicism. "This is your castle now, not mine." She physically recoiled at his tone. "I'm sorry. I'll leave. I'm sorry," she stammered. She immediately turned. No, wait," he said quickly. She glanced back. "I'm the one who's sorry. I know better than that. Just stay, please." Annie nodded and leaned against the door jamb again. It took Ren a second to realize she was waiting on him. "Why are you asking my permission?" he asked. "This is," he noted the present tense curiously, "your parents' room. It's not my place to come barging in, especially when you came here to think privately." "Come in," he said after a beat. She smiled and walked in, and as usual, even walking contained a bit of a bounce. She came to stand by the chair, peeking out the window. "This is a wonderful view. Much better than your room or mine, but not as good as the one on the ramparts." "Why do you like the room from there so much?" "Because it's so open. You can almost feel free." Ren stared out at the view before slipping his hand into hers. Her fingers curled around his. "I should have known. Logically, I should have realized that I'm king, coronation or not. I think I didn't want to admit it to myself, because that means it's real and that I'm not fit for this job. It's a big burden, but you're by no means unfit for the job, Rennie. I should have done more." "What could you have done besides push Vlad to the point where he killed you? Look what he did to you just for doing exactly what they wanted and liking me," she said somberly. That caught Ren off guard. She had a point. Despite the fact he had a real bed and wasn't in a cell, that didn't make him any less a prisoner, at the mercy of Vlad or anyone else in their employ. "You're right," he said slowly, feeling some of the guilt slide from his shoulders. "The best thing I could do for Tira and my people was to stay alive and hold on to hope that there might be an opening. And that's exactly what you've done. And now there are the freedom fighters and your brother. There were a lot of heavy topics in that sentence, but now wasn't the time, not with her. Instead, he drummed up a small smile and squeezed her hand. Well, at least now we're officially engaged. The entire country will know within a matter of days. She grinned and plopped herself in his lap, and for the moment, things were again as close to good as they ever were.